Okay, we're going to start talking about chapter 5, which is tissues. Starts on page 75. Okay, if you move over, if we talk about the different types of tissues, what tissues specifically are, is they're a group of similar cells that perform a common function. So there's 4 types of, or categories of tissues: epithelial, connective, nervous, and muscular. So what epithelial tissue does, what its purpose is to cover body surfaces, also lines, cavities, and organs. It forms glands. It's exposed to the environment, kind of the outer layer of the epithelial tissues, and the inner layer, they adhere to connective tissue. Okay, there's different classifications of epithelial tissue. If you look on page 76, it divides the epithelial tissue into the cell shape and the cell layer. So the first one is the cell shape. Squamous means it's a flat cell. Okay, cuboidal, it's a cube-shaped cell, and columnar is a cylindrical shaped cell. And depending on the area of the body these cells are found will determine the type of shape that they have. Cells, epithelial cells are also classified by the layers that they have. Okay, so a simple epithelial cell would, simple layers would be a single layer where each cell is touching the basement membrane. So it's just a one layer thick. That would be an area, for example, in your lungs, where you wouldn't want multiple layers of cells because you want gas exchange to happen easily. Stratified is where cells are stacked on top of one another to make layers. If you look at glandular epithelium on page 76, the gland is a collection of epithelial cells that secrete a particular substance. So depending on what type of gland you're talking about, depends on how the substance is secreted. So an exocrine gland, if you can think of exit, it secretes products into ducts. For example, tears, you have your tear ducts. Sweat glands, you have ducts in your skin that secrete sweat. You have gastric juices. So these are all produced by exocrine glands. Then you have endocrine glands. These secrete hormones into the blood. And we did discuss the endocrine system, so you should be familiar with the fact that the word endocrine correlates to hormones. If you look on page 77, we have the types of membranous epithelial tissue. So you have the layer, and then you have the function and the location. So for example, you have a simple squamous epithelium. That's a single layer of flat scale-like cells. Okay, so again, that can be found, if you look in the location, that can be found in the alveoli of the lungs. Okay, and also in the lining of certain types of blood vessels and lymphatic vessels. And if you look at the function, it allows for ready diffusion of filtration because of its thinness. Okay, so things can pass easily from side to side. And then we will go over and class each one more specifically, but that just gives you an idea of the shape and the layer when you're talking about different types of epithelial tissue.
Welcome to Moo Math and Science. In this video, I'd like to talk about epithelial tissues. Our body is made up of several different types of tissue. Our epithelial tissues line cavities and cover surfaces of vessels and organs. They provide several important functions. First is protection. from such as sunlight and pathogens. Next, they're involved in secretion of sweat or hormones and even mucus. They also are involved in absorption and exchange. For example, oxygen and CO2 are exchanged through epithelial tissues, and also epithelial tissues are important in sensation and how we touch and feel our world. Epithelial tissues are divided into several different types and are classified by both their shape and the number. First up, you have squamous. Squamous are like pancakes. Their width is greater than their height. You will find these in the lungs and the blood vessels. Next up are cuboidal. Cuboidal tissues have a width and height with it, which is the same like a cube. Many times you find these in important glands. Columnar tissues are just like a column. Their height is greater than their width. You find these in the digestive tract and possibly the trachea. They also are divided into simple, which are one layer, and stratified, which are multi-layered. Epithelial tissues, again, line our outside of our body, inside of our vessels, and help keep us alive. Thanks for watching, and Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day. Please.
Okay, so that's about epithelial tissue. Connective tissue. Connective tissue is probably one of the most diverse tissues. As you can see, there's many different types of connective tissue, and they're responsible for connecting different areas of the body together. They also support structures in the body. They bind structures together, protect organs. The unique thing about connective tissue, is the extracellular matrix. The extracellular matrix is the framework that allows the epithelial to be embedded within it to provide the structure for the particular type of tissue. So you can see we have things like here it's called dense fibrous, which are ligaments. That's a type of connective tissue. Adipose tissue, which we did discuss a little bit already, that's fat cells. Okay, and you can see this would be like around the kidney area to support the kidney. Bone is an connective tissue, Cartilage is a connective tissue. Okay, reticular is a framework of the spleen, which is a type of connective tissue. Alveolar, which is under the epithelium, is also connective tissue. And then your blood's unique in that it is a liquid connective tissue. Okay, and then again, the key component of connective tissue is its extracellular matrix. Okay, it's a framework in which the cells are embedded. And what this framework consists of, it consists of protein, fibers, and fluids. Okay, fibers can be collagenous, reticular, or fibrous. And we'll go over what that means a little bit more in depth in class. So if you want to look on page 79, the types of connective tissue. Okay, the first one you have fibrous connective tissue. And fibrous connective tissue, what that does, it has exactly what the name says. It has a lot of fibers that bind and connect the tissue together. And then under fibrous, you have dense fibrous connective tissue, and you have loose fibrous connective tissue. So the loose fibrous are the areolar, the adipose, and the reticular. So if you look at the three different boxes on page 79, the areolar connective tissue that has collagen and elastic fibers is gel-like and is soft. Okay, if you look on the bottom of the four little tabs, it says it surrounds blood vessels, nerves, the esophagus, and the trachea. So that's where the areolar tissue can be found. Adipose tissue is dominated by fat cells, and that supports structures in your body. It also acts as a storage area for excess food, and it also helps to insulate the body. And then reticular, loose connective tissue. And this consists of a network of reticular fibers and cells, and it forms the framework of the spleen, the lymph nodes, and the bone marrow. Okay, dense connective tissue, these are tendons and ligaments. Okay, tendons, what tendons do, they attach muscle to bone, and ligaments attach bone to bone. If you move on to look at page 80, you have different types of cartilage. Cartilage consist of different types of cells called chondrocytes. Okay, and that's chondrocytes, the term you need to know, and that again makes up cartilage. So there's hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage. Okay, the hyaline cartilage is the most common. That's the one that can be found inside at the end of your movable joints. It's also what forms the fetal skeleton. So the fetus is actually made of cartilage and then develops into bone. Your elastic cartilage, that provides the flexible support of the exterior part of your ear and also your epiglottis. And then your fibrocartilage, this is the cartilage that is in between the discs of your vertebrae. Bone is also a type of connective tissue. Bones are osseous tissue, and they are composed of osteocytes. Okay, bones are very important matrix in your body that provides strength to your body's skeletal system. Okay, blood is another type of connective tissue, and this exists as a fluid. So again, blood is the only connective tissue that is fluid. It's in a liquid matrix, and blood transports different nutrients to different areas of your body. Okay, let's get to the...
We've all seen what a building looks like. It has walls, windows, balconies, and terrace. And we also know what it's made up of. Yes, it is bricks, rocks, iron rods, etc. So let's try to make our own building. We started to pile up a few bricks. But you know what happened after a while? They all collapsed. Why do you think it happened? Maybe there's some important component which we have seemed to miss. Can you figure out? Oh, we didn't really use any cementing material. This cementing material is very important to build a structure. It binds all the other materials and helps in making the building firm and solid. So now we know that cement acts as a binding, supporting, and packing material. So just like a building, there's cementing material in our body too, in the form of a special tissue which helps to bind the body together. This tissue helps to connect all the organs and parts of the body, and hence this tissue is rightly named as connective tissue. The human body is made up of 4 types of tissues. In our last session, we saw how important the nervous tissue is, and today we'll be dealing with the connective tissue. As we know, a tissue is made up of cells, and the cells that make up this connective tissue are present in a gel-like substance called medium or matrix, which forms the main bulk of the connective tissue. Since it's a connective tissue, are you wondering in our body what does it connect? So to answer this, let's look at the human skeleton. An adult human body has 206 bones. So what do you think? Are they all connected to each other? Yes, they are all connected with this special type of connective tissue. The tissue that connects two bones is called a ligament. But apart from just connecting bones, even muscles are adhered to the bones with another type of tissue called the tendon. And both these, that is the ligament and the tendon, are a type of connective tissue called as the dense connective tissue. Dense because the cells in this type of tissue are densely packed together with very little matrix. To protect our bones and muscles, our skin comes into the picture. The human skin is the largest organ. But ever wondered how does it just stay there? The skin is connected to our muscles with a type of a connective tissue. The cells in this tissue float in a gel-like medium which is loose, and hence this tissue gets its name as an areolar or loose connective tissue. It's also present around blood vessels, nerves, and in the bone marrow, and to fill the space inside the organs. So mainly this type of connective tissue is used as a filler tissue. Are we all good till here? Okay. So till now we've seen how a connective tissue connects parts of our body or how it binds them together. Now let's move a step ahead and see the other functions of how the connective tissue supports our body. Our bones form the framework of our body. But did you know that these bones are also a connective type of tissue? It supports and holds our internal organs together. Like for example, the heart and lungs are supported by the bony rib cage in our chest. Our skull holds and supports our brain. It may be difficult to visualize a bone as a tissue because we've always seen a tissue like a layer or a group of cells. But the bone cells are present in a medium which has calcium and phosphorus. And due to this, a bone is strong and hard in appearance. So therefore the bone is a type of skeletal connective tissue. But there's one more tissue in this type. Have you ever tried folding your earlobe? It bends easily, right? That is because the cells here are widely spaced and the matrix is cheese-like, firm and slightly elastic. This tissue is called as a cartilage. Yes, the earlobe, nose tip and many more such areas are made up of cartilage. A precious body needs to be safe from the mechanical shocks it might get. And to do this, there's a layer of tissue right beneath your skin which acts as a shock absorber. This special type of connective tissue is called adipose tissue. The cells here are filled with fat globules. Let's come to a fun fact. Did you know that thin people who have very little adipose tissue feel more cold compared to fat individuals? As this layer acts as an insulator. This brings us to the last type of connective tissue. We've always seen a tissue like a layer of cells or a huge pile of cells. But what if I tell you that our body has a tissue which is liquid in nature? This fluid flows through your entire body and acts as a transporter of oxygen to all the parts of the body. Can you name this fluid in our body? Yes, it's the blood. Blood is a fluid connective tissue which has many cells like RBCs, WBCs and platelets suspended in a liquid medium called plasma. So here we've completed seeing all the types of connective tissue and simultaneously learned the functions of this tissue.
The next type of tissue is nervous tissue. Nervous tissue is unique because it's highly excitable and it's very conductive, which means that it sends messages back and forth from the brain, spinal cord, out to your peripheral nerves very, very quickly. Okay, so just think if you touch something hot, you pull your hand away, or whatever surface is touching whatever is hot, you're going to pull that away. If you feel something painful, you're going to pull that away very quickly. So it's very excitable and very conductive. So a nervous tissue is made up of a type of nerve cell. Okay, neurons are the units that conduct nervous impulses. So each neuron consists of this whole thing is a neuron. Okay, each neuron consists of what's called a soma. Okay, this is the large cell body, and I'm on page 82. The soma contains the nucleus of the nerve cell as well as the organelles of the cell. And then you have structures that are called dendrites. These extend from the soma. These receive impulses from other cells. And then you also have something called an axon, and that contains a single long nerve fiber. And that's what an axon is. It's a long nerve fiber, and it transmits signals to other cells. So dendrites receive impulses from other cells, and axons transmit signals to other cells.
Welcome to Moo Math and Science. In this video, I'd like to talk about nerve tissues. Nerve tissues are found in your brain, spinal cord, and the peripheral systems. Many nerve tissues are made up of nerve cells, which are called neurons. Their job is to transmit electrical signals throughout the body. They allow your brain to communicate with your body. A neuron has several parts. First, they have a cell body. The cell body contains the nucleus and other organelles like the mitochondria and ribosomes. They also have structures called dendrites, and they look a bit like tree branches. These dendrites receive electrical signals from other neurons. Next, a neuron has an axon, and the nerve signal passes down the axon. An axon has insulation called a myelin sheath. At the end of the axon, you have an axon terminal that communicates with dendrites of other cells. This allows electrical signals to pass and flow throughout your body. There you have nerve tissues, a group of neurons working together to pass electrical signals from your brain to many parts of your body. Thanks for watching, and Moo Math uploads a new math and science.
Okay, the next set of tissues are muscle tissues. That's on page 82 as well. There's 3 different types of muscle tissues. Muscle tissues in general consist of cells that are elongated, and they respond to a certain stimuli. There's 3, again, there's skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. So skeletal muscle tissue is striated, which means that it has light and dark bands that connect to make it look striped or striated. Skeletal muscle tissue is voluntary because it moves under voluntary control. Your body needs to send a message to your muscle to make a movement. It just doesn't move on its own. Cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is only found in the heart. Okay, it's made up of what's called and joined together by intercalated discs. So the cardiac muscle cells are connected together by intercalated discs, and there's spaces between these discs, and that space is where the electrical impulses of the heart allow and spread the message for the heart muscle cells to react, okay, to essentially create a heartbeat. And then cardiac muscle is involuntary, because what that means is that your body does not need to remind your heart to beat. So these cells and tissues work involuntarily. And then you have your smooth muscle tissues. These are long, spindle-shaped cells. Okay, they don't have any stripes or striations in there. And they move under, they're involuntary again. Okay, and these types of muscle tissue are found in your organs, such as your digestive tract, your respiratory and urinary tracts. Okay, one of the reasons that they're in your blood vessels is because they can dilate, which means open up and constrict easily. Okay, what this does is allows the flow of blood to go through the blood vessels more easily, so it'll dilate and constrict as necessary. So that's the three types of skeletal muscle tissue.
Welcome to Empowering. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel, and welcome to Anatomy 101. In this video, we're going to review the different types of muscle tissue. We're going to go over cardiac, smooth, and skeletal muscle tissue. We will go over the functions and the characteristics of each. We will also learn about contractility, excitability, extensibility, and elasticity. Now, this is the 16th video in this video series, so if you would like to start from the beginning, make sure you check out the link above. Now, if you like this video and you want to see more videos like this, please do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up, post a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Alright guys, let's get right into it. Did you know that muscles make up about half of your body weight? Without muscles, we would all literally just be skin and bones. The first thing you need to learn about our muscles is that it is composed of 3 different types of tissues: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Cardiac muscle. The cardiac muscle can be found in the myocardium. Myo meaning muscle and cardiac meaning heart. Its job is to contract and relax depending on the signals sent by the cardiac conduction system. Under the microscope, cardiac muscle appears striated, meaning the fibers of the cell are in a parallel arrangement. This makes the muscle strands or striations visible. Moreover, the parallel arrangement makes it possible for the muscle to contract and relax. That is why the heart is so effective in pumping the blood throughout the body. Smooth muscle. Smooth muscle can be found on the walls of the hollow organs. That's why it makes sense that it is non-striated, because it's smooth. You see, hollow organs like the alimentary canal need to be flexible so that certain movements can be achieved. The alimentary canal is the area from the mouth to the anus where food passes. For instance, when we swallow food, peristalsis is required to bring it down to the stomach. Peristalsis is the involuntary constriction and relaxation that helps food pass through the gastrointestinal tract. Other organs where you can find the smooth muscle are the urinary bladder and the uterus. At this point, notice that the contraction and relaxation of the cardiac and smooth muscle, despite being different in appearance, are both involuntary. The only type of muscle tissue where movement is in our control is the skeletal muscle. These skeletal tissues are attached to the bones. When we need to move a certain part of our body, the skeletal tissue will follow our command. Because movement needs flexing, it follows that these muscles are also striated. Well, that's the gist of it, but we are now moving to a more in-depth discussion about the structure and function of our muscles, the special functional characteristics of muscle tissues. Despite the different types, all muscle tissues share functional characteristics that allow them to perform their functions. Listed here are the special functional characteristics. Contractility. What sets muscle tissues apart from other types of tissues is its ability to contract. To imagine this, think about flexing your biceps. When you flex, the frontal muscles contract. If you want to extend your arms again, then the posterior muscles will be the ones contracting. This means that our muscle tissues are only capable of pushing and not pulling. Excitability. Excitability happens when our muscle tissues respond to a change in the environment, or what we call a stimulus. Once a stimulus is received, it will trigger nerve impulses, which will be interpreted by the brain, and the brain will command the muscles to react immediately, even without thinking. Think of touching a boiling pot. You don't think about removing your hand, it's automatic. Extensibility. If the muscles can contract, then they can certainly stretch or extend. This characteristic is a great partner to the muscle's ability to shorten. Elasticity. Now, after the muscles have stretched and shortened, it must be able to return to its original form and shape. It's a good thing muscle tissues are elastic. The functions of muscle tissues. Muscle tissues are created not just for protection, but also for mobility. Together with the bones, muscles can move internal and external body parts. Let's discuss some of the other most notable functions of the muscles. Maintenance of posture. Did you know that our muscles, even without us noticing, are constantly contracting for us to maintain a certain stationary position? For instance, you wouldn't be able to sit for hours if the muscles won't constantly contract. Heat generation. Earlier, we've established that muscles make up about 50% of the total body weight. What do you think will happen if almost half of our body weight cannot regulate temperature? Homeostasis becomes impossible. When our muscles shorten, they are able to generate heat. This function is especially important when our core body temperature drops. We tend to shiver and shake and generate heat. Stabilizing joints. You must agree that our joints are vulnerable. After all, they glue two different skeletal parts. Joints can be easily detached, but since muscles protect their stability, we can worry less about their integrity. Alright guys, I really hope you liked that video going over the different types of...
Okay, the next section we're going to talk about is on page 83. It's on tissue repair. So there's two types of ways that your body can repair tissue. One is regeneration. This is when your damaged tissue cells are replaced by the same types of cells, okay, resulting in a functional new tissue. This mostly occurs in the skin, usually when you have a cut or a scrape, and the process is again called regeneration. The next type of way a tissue can repair itself is called fibrosis. And this is when you have a damaged tissue and the damaged tissue is replaced by scar tissue. The scar tissue is mainly composed of a substance called collagen. Okay, often you'll hear about people have surgery, they end up with a lot of scar tissue that develops internally, and this is what the scar tissue is resulting from tissue repair. So if you look at the animation on page 83, you'll see that a cut occurs. You have a blood clot, you have a scab that starts to appear, you have a blood clot, you also have white blood cells, which will help with any type of infection. And then if you go down here, you have different types of tissue that are starting to build up. The white blood cells are starting to come towards the top. Okay, and here you have more closure. You have new epithelial cells that are replacing the white blood cells.
Soft tissue organs in the body repair injury through a multi-step process that begins as platelets from torn vessels work to form a mesh-like clot that prevents blood loss. Inflammation in the area occurs as tissue repair begins in the damaged area. Mast cells release histamine that dilates blood vessels and increases blood flow to the repair site. White blood cells, called neutrophils, and macrophages work to consume bacteria and remove damaged tissue and debris. As bacteria and dead cells are removed, the proliferative phase of wound healing begins. Fibroblasts build new tissue by secreting collagen that takes the shape of the original tissue. During remodeling, the final phase of wound healing, the tissue created by the fibroblasts matures and regains its normal function.
The last section we have is membranes. Membranes are thin sheets of tissues. And what these do is they line certain parts of the body. Okay, they line body cavities. They also cover body surfaces, and they separate organs. Some membranes, what they'll also do is they'll secrete a lubrication, and this will result in less friction, okay, and movement. There's two categories of membranes, epithelial membranes and connective tissue membranes. So the epithelial membranes can be divided into three types. So the mucous membranes, which you've probably all heard of. Mucous membranes line the body surfaces. They're the direct opening to the body's from the external environment to the internal environment. So respiratory tract, digestive tract, urinary, and reproductive tracts. Okay. This next one is cutaneous membrane. This also is referred to as the skin, and this is the body's largest membrane. And then you have the serous membrane. This is composed of simple squamous, so it's a single layer of epithelial cells, and this lines the areolar connective tissue. So you have three different types of serous membranes. You have one that's the pleural, so this surrounds the areas of each lung and thoracic cavity. You also have the pericardium, okay, or this is also called the pericardial membrane. It surrounds the heart. And the last one is called the peritoneum, okay, or peritoneal membrane. And that lines the abdominal cavity and covers the abdominal organ. So all three of these are called serous membranes. Okay, and it's a thin layer of connective tissue. And that is it for this chapter.